What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. We are in season 5, Richard, and I believe that we are close to or have eclipsed the 500 total episodes number.
We are close. I don't know if we've eclipsed it. You know what? You'll have to come back to the next episode. By the next episode, I'll have that number.
We'll have the answer. Whenever we do have the 500th episode, I think that we should polish off a little bottle of tequila while we have the episode, and it just gets progressively worse as the episode goes on. What do you think?
I think that's great, and I think we should see if this guest wants to join. Maybe we'll get a couple of guests to come to.
Yeah, we have a round table, so the amount of time we make an ass of ourselves is actually diminished a little bit because there's more guests to help us out.
Nah, I don't know about that. It just means that, you know me. Come on.
Yeah, your noise will cut through. Well, we're joined today by the co-founder, CEO of a company called Wiza, ironically purple and logo with a wizard hat, and somewhat in the same space potentially as another famous wizardry kind of company. Maybe we'll talk about that. It's Stephen Hakami from Toronto, Canada, CEO of Wiza. What's up, Stephen? How are you?
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Tell us a little bit about the story of the logo that I see behind you. I presume is the Wiza cap, the wizard cap.
The wizard hat sitting above me here.
How did you hit on that?
Yeah, we were trying to come up with a name, and it was a tool we were using when we first started Wiza. I was doing a bit of like agency freelance work, doing cold email campaigns for different clients, and we pieced together a bunch of tools to kind of export LinkedIn Sales Navigator searches, find contact information, then verify it, and then reach out. And we kind of like internally dubbed it the Wizard. So when we realized that it could be a product in and of itself, we wanted to call it Wizard. But then realized if you Google Wizard, it's never going to come up. So Wiza.co was available. And we thought Wiza has a nice ring to it, nice 4-letter domain. And we did that. And so yeah, purple felt like the magic sort of color, but there are tons of brands now that, like, there's a company called Wiz that's pretty massive. They're like Wiz.io. There's Wiza with 2 Z's. So yeah, there's a lot of competing magical brands.
Well, tell everybody about Wiza. Give everybody the quick elevator pitch. Like, what do you all do? Who do you sell to? What space are you in? That kind of stuff. So everybody has the context.
Yeah. So we essentially provide contact information. We started, I was working in sales myself for a conference company. And what's interesting about an event is you're starting from scratch every new event that gets launched. So we'd be selling tickets and sponsorship to an event in Chicago, and then 2 months later to one in LA. And we had to basically build an entire new data set. So we're doing a lot of prospecting. We preferred to all work off LinkedIn rather than like Zoom Info. We found it was just more up to date. But there's no way to really like export searches at the time. And so that's kind of what we initially solved for, was exporting searches from LinkedIn. What we found is that people generally prefer the data that's on LinkedIn, and they trust the job titles. They're more up to date. And so we kind of nailed in on that, and now we're a full prospecting suite that's entirely powered by LinkedIn data. So anytime you request any contact details for anyone, we do a live check on the profile of that person and make sure there's still that, that company, that job title, and update those records.
You follow that, Richard?
Yeah, I'm.
If you remember back in the day when you had to pick up the phone, how many people did you go to call or message and it was like, I don't work here anymore, that person doesn't work here anymore?
All the time.
Bad number or whatever. Yes. So what do you think is like
on your dispositions?
Yeah. What's an acceptable kind of bad data rate, Stephen, at this point in time? If Richard and I are running modern sales organizations in 2024, what would you sort of advise us is like an acceptable rate?
Yeah, well, I think on email specifically, you don't want to get above 3% bounce. Which is actually pretty
very low. Richard.
Yeah, it is pretty low. 5% is where you really start to run into issues, but yeah, like these email service providers are getting smarter with detecting which email accounts are just created to send out a whole bunch of cold email. And they typically have larger bounce rates. Like we always, when we talk about deliverability, think like if you're a real employee at a company doing like accounting, how many emails do you send out that bounce? It's pretty rare. It's like, oh, you email someone, you used to work with, you thought they still work there and it bounces. Like it happens every now and then, but if you're getting like a 10% bounce rate, that's a really big clue to the ESPs that you're kind of a spammer.
Yeah, it's interesting too. And so then the question becomes, and this isn't, everybody knows this isn't a product pitch. I do think everybody also knows like this is a massively important topic. So I'm going to ask about the product, right? So with Wiza, are you then going back and revalidating legit company emails? Or are you going back and validating their, some people just put like their Gmail in there. Like, are you going back and doing all that too?
Yeah. So we're not taking any of the sensitive info like email address from the LinkedIn profile. We're just taking kind of the company information and then using other sources to figure out the email. But yeah, a big piece to our tech is what we call real-time verification. So if you look up Scott's info, what we do is we go to his LinkedIn, we check what the LinkedIn says today at that moment. Then we source the email address at that moment. And then the last step is an email verification. So it'll take longer than other tools. If people typically use our tool in like batches, so they'll build searches and get CSV files back that take some time because there are some steps and sometimes people don't want to wait 45 seconds, but the result is a less than 1% bounce rate.
That's the less than 45 seconds. That takes time. That's called taking times.
Yeah.
That's called, remember, Scott, you never even had to dial out of the phone book or the yellow pages. Like,
no, I didn't have to use the yellow pages. I was fortunate enough to be around when the internet was out.
Yes, you were. You were lucky.
Yeah,
you were quite lucky there. So in that regards, right? So now here's an interesting question. It feels like, and you could tell me not, you're in a fairly competitive space, right? In terms of data and data entry or data quality. How do you, as an organization, as you see things, right? How do you try not to get commoditized in general? Like there's a founder out there who's listening to you and they're like, okay, I think I've got this great thing. It does really well, like Wiza, it does great things, but I'm going to get commoditized. I'm going to get compared to everybody, right? Not even, I do want to hear like now how you address it, but how did you think about it in the beginning? Like, okay, here's what we're doing. We know we have something unique. We found a niche. How are we going to make sure we don't get lost in the noise? Like what advice would you give a founder around that?
Well, to be honest, when we first launched, you're right. First of all, it is like ultra competitive space. Like every day I see a new data company out there. So it's very, very competitive. But when we first launched, I thought of it as something on the side. Like Wiza is going to be this kind of hopefully get to 10K MRR and it'll sit on the side and be kind of side income. So even though that's not the best way to think to start a business, what helped was that we stayed in such a niche and didn't feel the need to expand out. So we were literally just the tool for if you want to export searches or lead lists out of LinkedIn Sales Navigator, come to Wiza. And so it was a functionality that no others offered. And so that's how we started to kind of get some traction and some product market fit within that use case. So I think like being ultra, like fixing a very specific problem to kind of get the business started was very helpful. And then expanding from there and learning, what worked in this case, like the core problem, it was exporting from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but the core problem the customers ultimately had was the data that they saw in ZoomInfo or whatever tool they were using didn't match up with what was on LinkedIn. And so they wanted data that matched what LinkedIn said. Not that LinkedIn's always 100%, but they trust it a lot more and it's more accurate than the big data providers. And so we kind of expanded from there. So yeah, I think fitting into like a particular niche or use case is helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's super important. Question around data, right? I've had this theory for a while, and agree with you that LinkedIn feels like the single best source, right? And you have so
if you're selling into tech,
I'm sorry,
not necessarily the single best.
I'm sorry.
It's not necessarily the single best source if you're selling to plumber addresses, right?
Scott, I was talking.
Yeah, I'm aware. We have a interrupt-worthy relationship.
We do. So, so my question for you, now that maybe Scott made me forget it, is I've always had this theory that people needed two data providers because the data quality is tough to come by. You are certainly providing something that feels more unique. What happens if one of the large companies, let's talk about our friends at ZI, they come around and they just do what you do. How do you prevent that? Because again, this is the cool part about being nimble. You're younger, you're hungrier, you're a startup, do all these things. How do you anticipate, prepare for something like that? Because again, I'm thinking about founders who are like, oh my gosh, what about the bigger companies?
Yeah. So I think specifically in the way our tool works, it's not that it's impossible. I just think that the model for a company like ZoomInfo would have to totally change. 45 seconds is not a huge time delay, but it's an entirely different, we are not a database. There's no, set data in Wiza. If I look up your contact information today, we seek it out across the web in that moment and return it to you. So there's no static database behind our product. It's not to say that that's something that ZoomInfo or like another big data player couldn't do. I just think the way our tool was built was always structured around this kind of longer time delay. So people export lists, they get an email when the list is done. So it's like 45 seconds a lead. So that can add some time. Whereas the customers of a larger data provider, a lot of times they do want to build a list and see all the emails right then and there. They don't want to have to.
Which makes no sense anyway, because, and let's make sure so we've dropped some names. We're talking about Wiza. So let's make sure that everybody knows we're talking about Wiza the most. In this sense of anybody who thinks that those 45 seconds matter, in my opinion, doesn't understand their role. Because no matter how fast you get it, you still have to contact those people. And those 45 seconds are not going to be the part that wins you the business. And someone gets here and say, yeah, but I got there first. And I'm like, I don't want you to get there first. I want you to get there better. So, so that's, I find that objection feels hollow to me. I don't know. Scott, what do you think? Is that a bullshit objection?
I don't know if it's a bullshit objection, actually. I think there's some validity to it. It doesn't mean that you should allow it to be an excuse and it cripples you and prevents you from getting anything done. But I don't think you can completely dismiss it as not being real or not existing. I don't know. That's how I feel about most complaints.
Right.
They're rooted in some sort of truth.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
You still got to move forward anyways, right?
Yeah, but it's you get a list of 100 people. You're not calling all 100 of those. You're not emailing all 100 at once.
Right.
You better be good at it, to his point,
Yep.
And the fact that with all the new rules, you want the more accurate data, right? I'm selling Stephen for you. There you go.
I do. I mean, if I have a list of 100 people, though, my first reaction is I'm going to call 100 people.
But not immediately.
No, not instantaneously, and certainly not in one power robo dialer calling 100 numbers at once or sending 100 emails at once. No.
So,
but my intention is to get after all of them, assuming they're all somewhere in my ICP.
Correct.
Right.
So, Stephen, question for you. because you're in the space. That's always important. The new Google rules, the new Yahoo rules, right? I'm sure you get asked this daily. We always like to hear these opinions from different people because there's so many. And, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you're able to avoid the filters, it's going to be a net positive because there's going to be less spam in people's inboxes. But so when we started doing SEO, I was learning all the different pieces of SEO and how the Google algorithm works, and they don't like to, reveal exactly what plays into it. And what I found the best way to think about that was just create the best experience for the user, and they stay on your page, and everything funnels down to that. So I think it's the same thing for the ESPs for email deliverability, where you can kind of avoid these traps with different tricks, and they're always changing and trying to keep up with the rule changes. But I think the core idea is you don't want to look like a spammer. And if you look at what does a spam inbox typically look like versus what does a real employee at a company, how does that email outreach look like? They usually create an email account, maybe they get a few internal emails the first week and they're not sending much out. And then over time that slowly increases. But most of their communication, it's partially internal, partially external. So we in our cold email campaigns have really focused in on deliverability and all those kind of pieces, warming up the inbox, lower percentage of outbound emails versus internal emails, and we've gotten really good success with that. So I think looking like a real email account as a real employee is a good rule of thumb to generally stay out of spam.
That's the first time I've heard somebody say that, and I think it's really smart. Look at the differences. Look at a real employee. So I appreciate that. Scott, it also makes me think that we've got a new job. We could get hired by companies to go get hired by their competitor, and then we go to that competitor and we start just marking all their internal emails as spam.
I believe that this job exists. It has something to do with corporate espionage.
Yes. So
this is not a novel thing. I don't know how much it exists in the startup world, though. We would be taking it from a big business all the way down to the.
That's what I'm saying, right? So we could go. If you want to name the company, go rogue. That's it. So
how do you feel about kind of getting started with sales and revenue generation, and where do you land, and how did you approach kind of the founder-led selling stage? Is that something that you actively did? Did you throw your hands in the air and say, I'm not that guy, I need somebody straight away? What do you think about that, and what advice would you have for other entrepreneurs going through something similar?
Yeah, well, so I, as a kid, always wanted to be an entrepreneur and always, tried to create different businesses. My first software company was iPad ordering at restaurants called Restaurant Solutions.
I like that he said as a kid, and I'm thinking in school. And he said a kid of 20 something.
No, I was 16.
Yes, so much.
Oh, he's 16. Yes. Yeah.
So much smarter and so much more ambitious than we were.
Yes.
No, but so I went door to door to different restaurants with just a wireframe trying to pitch this idea, and slowly learned, sales from some of these different ventures I started on. But my first corporate job was that conference company, and I was doing sales, and it felt like entrepreneurship just within a company, and I just got addicted to the idea. I couldn't believe that I could just start in a role and start creating revenue out of thin air, just reaching out to someone cold and, making deals. It was just incredibly addicting. So I always felt very passionate about sales. So when I left to create Wiza, it felt kind of natural that the way to ultimately grow the company would be to do that through sales. So a lot of
to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You have a little bit different experience than some people who are very product oriented, engineering oriented, and they don't want anything to do with actually trying to monetize the product themselves. So how do you move then from, okay, you've built this thing, you know how to sell it, to, I think it's time for me to hire some people, teach them how to sell it? Was that difficult to kind of let go of that control a little bit, listen to other people? Is that like nails on a chalkboard when you hear them talking at first?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's incredibly difficult. I think I still deal with it. I think I still listen at like 2x speed to almost every sales call we have. And I think I probably do get too like nitpicky with like, oh, why'd you say it this way? Or like, I wouldn't have presented this like this. So yeah, honestly, it's something I still struggle with, but I think what's helped is we record every single sales call. So I've just done a ton, recorded them, recorded myself doing them while speaking over why I said this like this and whatever. Not that I'm perfect by any means, but yeah, I think just having done it for years.
All right, I got a couple of things. So one, I want to compliment you for recording your own calls. I hope you give them to your team and ask them to give you feedback, because I think that's smart. Scott, you're working with a founder, talking to someone like Stephen. He wants to grow, he wants to scale, and he's like Richard and has this little one part of a control freak piece where he can't let go of the cold call. He's listening to every single, not cold call, but every call. What advice do you give someone like Stephen about learning how to let go? Not that they have to, but I'm curious,
Yeah. I mean, in general, you just can't expect people to ever be as good as you. And if they can do it even 80% as good as you, then that's good enough. And you probably are better deployed spending your time elsewhere in the business. And this is a little bit stage dependent, I suppose. But, that's kind of the art of delegation, is understanding if I hand this off to Richard, it's not going to be 100% as good as if I did it myself, and understanding that that's okay, because while he was getting something to 80%, I was doing something else that was presumably productive, right? And Richard hands me something that's at 80%. If I can make a couple quick tweaks to bring it to 90 to 100, that's massive productivity spike, right? And it's difficult. It's difficult for sales managers who listen to the reps and try to coach and train. It's difficult for VPs of sales who listen to their sales managers deliver feedback, let alone listen to reps. And so it's pretty normal, but I think it's just an expectation tweak. I think we struggle with delegation because we always think, well, I could have done it better. Yeah, of course you could do it better. There's only one of you, right? No, that's what you have to kind of think about is, I removed myself and these people were doing 80% as good as I would do. And I could spend that time doing something else that moved the ball for us. Is that worthwhile? And usually the answer is yes.
So, and Stephen, I know you didn't ask for this advice, so I'll tag those two.
Yeah, he baited you into it.
Yeah. So and this is as much for listeners, right, as much as it is for you or anybody else. But part of the reason you're so good is that you are the co-founder. You get to walk into a sales conversation with a title and persona of a co-founder. And if that customer knows that, then they're going to raise their level of tolerance for you. Have you, and I don't say that, I don't know that you're like, I'm the co-founder of so-and-so. Maybe that is your style. And if it works, keep doing it. So that would be my only thing, is just remind yourself that, to Scott's point, like, nobody's going to do it better than you. And that's one of the reasons. Those people are buying Stephen. They are buying the co-founder as much as they're buying Wiz or any other thing. So hopefully that was helpful. Otherwise, we just patronized you for the last 4 minutes.
That's
be right.
Yeah. And there are things like roadmap or things like that you can speak to on a demo that you can't expect a sales rep to know
Exactly.
every piece of
Right.
what's coming up and things like that. So.
And in some cases, you may not want them to because they may not describe it the right way. It could change. And it's different for them to make the call to say, oh, this changed, than for you to pick up the phone as the co-founder and say, look, it's my mistake. It's not, you know what I mean? Like there's a balance in there. So I totally respect that. So, cool. So what's been your hardest challenge? Like, in terms of growing, where was the hump from? Let me ask you this question. When did you think you had product market fit? At what stage? How many customers was it? How many deals? How much user use? Like, how did you define product market fit? And
For me, I just remember the moment because it felt like when we were at 20K MRR. Because at that point, I mean, we had probably an average customer spend of like $60 a month or something. So we had a large number of like monthly customers. I was able to leave my job, and I felt like we definitely had something here. Building it.
And that's the goal. Was the goal to say, we know we'll have product market fit at that level? And what was the difference between, 15K MRR and 20K that made you go, we're here?
Yeah, I think it's just like a mental number for me. But yeah, like I said, when we first started, like it was something I viewed as, something on as like side income. So I think that's just more so when my mentality shifted as, okay, there's a much bigger opportunity here than I realized, because we scaled to that with a couple blog posts I had written. I was still in a full-time job, and some cold email campaigns. So I knew where there was smoke, there was fire, I guess. And so that's kind of where my mentality shifted, and I left the job and kind of went all in.
How much, and I'll let Scott interrupt me and ask the question if he likes. How much of that product market fit was based on I can go do this and quit my job because I know my income will suffer?
Yeah, I think mentally that was a good piece. I mean, there's a lot of things that I felt contributed to it. There was just like generally people's feedback was really, really strong. There were ways of doing what we did, especially at the time, because our email finding was like not that great. We'd find like 30 to 40% of a search on Sales Navigator. So there were ways you could do it and use like a scraping tool and find the contact information. So I think when the feedback was so strong right away, again, I'd created like many businesses before that did not have product market fit. And I just knew that this felt different. It didn't feel like pushing like a boulder up a hill. It felt like pushing a boulder on like a flat ground or slightly declined. So yeah, everything about it felt different. But I think that mental number definitely helped me realize, this is something to kind of jump into full time.
We got one last question for you, and then we'll flip it over to you. You have had one business, at least on LinkedIn, that's been acquired. How do you know when the right time to sort of call it quits, cash out is? Because everybody that I've talked to reaches this point where they're like, they have an offer for $1 and they're like, man, if I kept going, I bet I could get to 10. And, you're kind of like, is this enough? Do I keep going? Do I think I can get more? Am I being too greedy? Not many people, I think, talk about like, when is the right time? How do you know? Is there a certain signal that you look for? I'd love anything you could share about that experience and how you're applying it, looking ahead.
Yeah. So that was very small and more of a side project. That was kind of jumping on opportunity during COVID. in Canada, you had to log every single person that entered a restaurant. So we made like a pretty quick, easy app that was like $50 a month, where you just scan a QR code and it automatically logged your contact details.
Scott, these simple ideas, like how are we so stupid? Genius.
We were born this way. We have poor DNA.
So that helped in terms of knowing when to sell, because we knew COVID wasn't going to be forever. And again, it was something on the side. But
well, that's part of the problem. We thought we were entering the Walking Dead zone. Like old people, and we're like, oh, we're going to die if we go outside.
It's all over. Yeah. No, but I think now with like thinking of if I would sell, like I saw a Warren Buffett quote, which is like, the worst thing about selling your business is that now you have the problem that everyone else has, which is trying to find a good business.
So it's like, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think, I don't feel anywhere close to wanting to sell Wiz. I really don't know what I would do with my life. But from founder stories I've heard, it sounds like people reach maybe a point of burnout or want to, explore something new. And maybe at that point, but yeah, I don't feel close.
You have kids? You have kids yet?
No.
Yeah, there it is. That's
Big difference, maybe.
Yeah, that is a big difference. Like, okay, I can go do this other stuff.
I don't know. My general philosophy, as you know, Richard, is go for the register, not the vault.
Right. Totally. So $5 million is enough.
Somebody shows up and offers me a particular amount,
I'm out.
I'm like, I'm out.
Totally.
I'm out. Well, we appreciate you spending some time with us, Stephen. It's been fun getting to know you and learn a little bit about Wiza and your background, how you think about things. How can we be helpful to you, man? Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I think kind of in the same vein around sales. So, our average ticket price on like an enterprise deal is like 5 to 10K.
Wait. Your average ticket price on an enterprise deal is 5 to 10K?
Yeah, we call it enterprise. It's more sold to SMBs.
Okay. I understand now. That's the name of like the plan or the
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's typically not.
There's a little glitch in the matrix there for a second.
I was like, that's not enough. So
2 cents per user. I'm curious as we've thought of ways to kind of continue to go up market. I guess you kind of have an idea of who, the bigger competitors are, and you're competing against we're a team of 15. How do you think about, or how would you advise maybe moving up market versus staying kind of where we are, this SMB sort of company, smaller team, 5 to 10K deals?
This is fairly easy for me, especially as an outsider. But the answer is, do you feel like you've mastered the sale that you're doing right now, where it's completely like repeatable and dialed in? And if you wanted to, you could add X number of bodies and get Y amount of output. And if the answer is yes, this thing is mastered and kind of on autopilot and will continue to grow, then I think it's time to explore moving upwards a little bit. If the answer is no, we barely know how to tie our own shoes, then to me, the answer is don't move into a new vertical, a new market, whatever, until you've mastered the first thing. Get good at the main thing before you decide to go try thing 2. That's my general advice. Do you agree, Richard, or disagree?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle.
I would not. I'll go a layer deeper and say, first thing you got to do is stop listening to all these sales calls, because this is exactly what Scott's talking about. Is like your time. If you're at this point of mastery, this is what you should be spending your time on, not listening to sales calls. It doesn't mean you can't listen to a couple here and there, like 1 or 2 a week. Then you decide, okay, well, what does up market look like? Based on the types of companies we sell to now, what verticals are we good at? And let's go talk to a bunch of those people. It's just like, as soon as people go up market, they kind of forget how they got in the first place, which was, I talked to 100 people, right? Well, you got to do the same thing as you go up market, because similar but different, right? It's going to be a longer sales cycle. You're going to have to go through different committees to get approved and purchased. And there might be, security issues and spam law. And there's this whole host of things that an SMB or mid-market may not pay attention to. Mm-hmm. I also think you choose one vertical to try to go after, right? And you kind of look at it in terms of who are we really good at in this vertical, and could that story expand easily, mm-hmm. right? And maybe you can go after, maybe you can research too, but you can't research everything. But I think, if you're at that level that Scott's talking about, this is where your time should be spent, not listening to sales calls. So as your sales team listens to this, we support you. We'll get Stephen off your back for you if we can. Scott, would you, if he's at that stage, does that sound like the right thing? Like if someone wants to go up market, what is your advice around?
Yeah. Other things to think about would be, do you have personnel in place who have done that motion before? Or would the current personnel have to learn it? And if they have to learn it, who's going to teach it to them? Because depending on how far up market you try to go, it is a different sale and a different process, And if you take somebody who's coming from an SMB sale and you stick them in a 2-year sales cycle, they're going to be like, what do I do? Especially without any kind of guidance. They might make a lot of mistakes, along the way. So, that's another consideration is, do we have the personnel and do we have the process in place to kind of, upskill, train people and whatnot? A lot of times the answer is no. I guarantee you, if you ask people, they'll say yes, that they're ready. Put me in, coach. But that doesn't mean that, it's true.
Right.
So, and you're the secret weapon. Like, you're used to doing this. You're used to knocking on doors and talking to strangers, and you have this sort of founder-led sales skill that, that a lot of founders I talk to, and I think Scott talks to, don't have that. So you're kind of the secret weapon of, I could figure this out. And when it's time to bring in someone to do it, you know what it would look like experience-wise. At least that's my impression of you, knowing you for the last 45 minutes. So
that's helpful.
Yeah.
I have one more. Good time.
Sure.
Bonus question.
So you both obviously have great personal brands. Say you're CEO of a new company tomorrow. Do you put any resources? You say you're starting from scratch. Do you put any resources into building a personal brand?
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you're almost too late. If you
100 million %. Yes. I'll just say it. I actually think there is no better marketing channel for you right now or for Wiza than your personal brand and you becoming seen and, notorious in a good way. And everywhere there's an event of some sort, everywhere there's content, bang, there's Stephen, or bang, there's 15 people from Wiza. It performs better than SEO stuff. That's what I think. Like, it is demand gen for you now.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. There are people who work at companies whose personal brands are more popular than the company, more known. And therefore, I know your company only because I know that dude, Richard, who works there.
Yep.
And if you have the leader of the organization setting the tone and sort of opening up the kimono and saying, hey, here's how I do everything, everybody should copy me, that's fantastic, because it's like free advertising all the time, right? It helps with recruiting, helps with retention, it helps with sales, it helps with everything. So you are making a drastic mistake in ignoring it. Now, if you don't want to do it yourself, fine. Hire a ghostwriter, hire somebody to manage these different channels for you. But everybody on your team should be doing it, and you should set the tone with that thing.
That was the one thing I was going to say, was that in addition to you, this is one of those things that you can have your reps doing. And, the key piece of branding isn't about branding Wiza. It's about branding Stephen. It's about branding Stephen as a thought leader. It's about branding Stephen as, whatever you are as a human being. And it can be in relation to what you do, but it doesn't always have to be about that, right? Like you could write stuff, all the stuff we asked you about founder-led sales. Every one of those could be a LinkedIn post. Right? Learning how to delegate, right? Has nothing to do with wisdom, right? But if you frame it the right way of like, this is my challenge as a founder, I have a hard time letting go. There's going to be 1,000 founders who agree with you, 1,000 salespeople who agree with you. Your team's going to appreciate the fact that you got vulnerable. People you recruit are being like, wow, this guy really is trying to get better. So it doesn't have to do with Wiza, as Scott was. Ironically, this is actually the conversation I was just having with Michael before we get to the podcast. Like, that those two things, like you were talking about LinkedIn and how to use it and the algorithm and all this stuff. And so I was giving him some suggestions, sort of hoping, I'm like not patronizing the guy, but he and I've had a nice little dialogue back and forth. So you can go say, what did Richard say?
Yeah, I'll ask him.
And then ignore it and let's go ask Scott.
Cool. We appreciate it. Once again, Stephen, you spending some time with us. Good luck to you. Good luck to Wiza. Website is, tell everybody what the website is so they can check it out. WIZA.com. Wow. There's so many websites similar. He doesn't even know his own one. Say it one more time so everybody knows your website.
WIZA.com.
Nice. He had to think about it there a little bit.
Yeah. That's that.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time on the.
I got one more. Hey, Scott, have you noticed the way Stephen's sitting? His little purple hat is sitting.
Oh yeah, the whole time I've noticed that.
I haven't noticed it.
It's like perfectly positioned. Yeah.
Check us out on YouTube to go see what we're talking about.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya. Thanks, Stephen.